Good morning, kings, queens, and internet fiends. Today's lesson, we're going to talk about how motivation is a terrible teammate. A terrible teammate. Okay, guys. I don't know what to do or where to start about this one because if you want to be motivated, the problem is anybody is going to try their best to motivate you, and it's a terrible and slippery slope. And I can't stress how much of a slippery slope it is because it's not very fulfilling. Right? It is a fast food collection of quick hits of inspirational ideals and ideas that are so fluid and beautiful and empowering that you forget that doesn't matter once the alarm clock goes off, bro. Like, it doesn't matter once your life actually starts getting hard and you have to actually apply the values that you say you have to real life. So motivation is a terrible teammate, but it's a good tool. Before I just crap on motivation for another 3 minutes, when is a good place for motivation to be used, right? Let's ask ourselves, when is the gym, right? A place where you've already made it to the environment where you're working to get better at something, right? So number one, the gym. Yeah, I think that's a good one. Number two, okay, maybe a study room. Anything else? A workout? Yeah, that counts as gym. That's about it. That's really about it, guys. Everywhere else, motivation is terrible. Let me tell you why. It's terrible because it doesn't serve you the way that you think it serves you. It serves you the same way that a feel-good movie makes you feel like anything's possible, right? But it doesn't really start with any practicality that can move you forward somewhere. Yes, willpower is everything. I do believe that the way that you approach something is important. Your mentality will take you a long way. If you believe you can do something, you're right. If you believe you can't do something, you're right. I agree with that. However, I'm going to list some places where motivation is not good, right? Your bedroom. Your bedroom is a place to decompress, relax, and kind of wind down for the day. You don't want to start spiking your anxiety when you're about to go to sleep. So the midnight motivation in your bedroom, terrible place. It doesn't serve you, it doesn't help. Number two. Breakfast. Now some of you might be asking, hey Sam, why is motivation bad during your breakfast when you're getting your bowl of cereals or your Frosted Flakes? It's because at this point your day is already decided. You've already decided what you're going to do for the day. At this point, being motivated about it doesn't help you at all, right? If you start changing how it is that you're going to do your day based on how you feel come 8 a.m. after you're already eating breakfast, you're not that disciplined anyway. So if anything, you're doing a disservice. Now you're teaching yourself that you can hop on and off this train of visualization. Number two, terrible place. Number three, when you're already at the place where you're getting better, right? The classroom, the field, or your phone. Last one's counterintuitive. I mean, let's just be honest about it. It's counterintuitive because how else are you gonna find the motivation? Most of the time, nobody's gonna run up on you on the street and just be like, hey, you got this, buddy. You're gonna get on your phone. So I think that one I'm gonna erase for now, but because that's where you're gonna see all of this kind of stuff. But it's more so if you're going to your phone to look for something else, right? Getting motivated about what you're looking for is the same way as getting afraid of the boogeyman through your phone. It's the same way of watching a horror story on the news as if that applies to your real life. Yeah, the sky could be falling. There are only so many things I can do inside of my day that can be cohesive to my purpose, my courage, my curiosity. These values, right, that we have to instill in ourselves to continuously move throughout life in a direction forward rather than in a cycle perpetually going nowhere, right? So now that you know that we hate motivation because it's not very helpful, what's the alternative? The alternative is to find what it is that, slows you down. I think the best way that we can learn from, our emotional regulation is that if we're spiked and then kind of load by the things that we can see online, it makes it really easy to not only manipulate how you feel about yourself, manipulate the process of what you do with your emotions, right? Let's use an example. So if you had a bad game, right? Let's say you went 0 for 14, right? Shooting, playing basketball. And you get online and you see hate messages from the rival high school. Right, that spikes your emotional regulation, maybe that spikes your anxiety, you're pissed, you're raging. So now you say, all right, cool, I'm gonna prove these guys wrong. I'm gonna go to the gym at 11 p.m., right, and take 500 shots. And I'm gonna do 50 different cone drills to better my speed so I never feel this way again, right? This is a short-term solution for a short-term emotional spike, which is going to force you down a rabbit hole of always being reactive based on how it is that you do. So the next time you do good, right, you shoot 12 for 14, right, and you see nothing but love. Maybe you got 50 new DMs from new friends, and you respond to every single last one of them like, yeah, this is awesome. You're not gonna go to the gym at 11:45 p.m. just because you're not working on the same pattern of recognition based on the stimulants that you're getting, right? And I think that's a big association with how it is that we look at motivation, because motivation does the same thing, right? It regulates you based on, It regulates you based on what's happening around your life. And over time, what that'll do is make you very easily swayed based on how it is that you're feeling on that day. That would be like having an Uber driver who only shows up when he feels motivated to do so. That's not very good. Now, okay, he has to get motivated before he comes sees me. That's not very good. So now, if I want to get better, I have to be motivated first to do it. Well, that's not very sustainable, because what about when the days that I don't feel good? What am I relying on then? Am I spiraling deeper into the rabbit hole? Because now the motivational emotional regulation of being sparked to do something has to go deeper, has to attack your identity a little bit more the next time. So instead of it just being like, hey, go do push-ups, I believe in you. Now it's, all right, go do push-ups or nobody's gonna believe in you. And that cycle of falling further and further down that pattern or that path over time will lead you to a space to where now you don't rely on any type of self-thought, self-belief, self-courage. It's all outsourced to an algorithm or outsourced to another person who then can control what you do next. And you never want to forfeit your autonomy for somebody else's idea of what it is that you want to be doing with your own life, right? That's why I think motivation, for the most part, is bad. Unless you are setting time across your day to then reinvigorate maybe some emotions that you have, I think that's a great idea. If you want to go see a public speaker, or you want to go to a live event that kind of refurbishes these maybe not so highlighted lights in your head of, I want to do this thing or I want to keep going, then yes, that's awesome, right? But that's a pre-dedicated time. That's a preordained situation to where now you're not being thrown off or swayed based on how the emotions are going day to day. I hope that it makes a little bit more sense when you have some time to think about it. It's just, as we keep moving forward and more ideas spew all across the internet, it's going to be really, really difficult, right, to kind of find your nucleus, your home, or your idea of what is sanity, what is synchronicity, and what is purposeful for you. But I just I hope and I pray that most of you guys listening to this now aren't so negatively inclined around the idea of maybe being okay with not necessarily liking the thing that you're doing. And if you can get okay with doing something that you don't like, a really good book that talks about this is Chop Wood, Carry Water. And one of the main focuses is how the simplicity of the actions that you do over time pours back into your self-worth, back into your self-mentality, because the evidence of completion is also evidence of confidence, it's also evidence of reassurance, it's also evidence of a self-sustaining identity, right? Those things come from completing the task at hand. And motivation, a lot of times, at least in my personal experience, it doesn't lead to completion. It leads to erection, it leads to a personification of idea, but a lot of times the finishing part is the thing that you leave to the most emotionally unregulated part of your head, and that's not very good. So no motivation at breakfast or in your bed at night. Anything past like 2 a.m. motivation is probably the worst thing for you, just because now you're basically throwing off your next day on an idea that you could have been better that day, instead of just resonating in the work that you've done. You can't really get the day back. You can only focus on what's next and what's forward. So if we've attacked motivation for the last 10 to 15, what are some alternatives? What are some things that we can do instead, right? Checklist. Did you do what you said you was gonna do? That's motivation. Now you have evidence, right? But the alternative is simply looking for progress in the way that somebody looks for progress on building new technology. If I'm going to build an airplane, right? If my process is believing in flight and my process is being motivated in the sense of I can do this thing, there is not a lot of ways that I can better my routine or my practice or even my purpose to actually be better at doing the thing that I want to do, right? Because you can get addicted to motivation the same way you can get addicted to anything else. You can get addicted to somebody telling you that you are awesome or feeding your ego, or you can get addicted to the idea of seeing chaos or dopamine. They're all just different ways of spiking these parts of your head that aren't necessarily made there to serve you. They're made there to protect you, but we don't live in a barren wasteland, so no longer are you outside in the woods foraging for, wood and water, but those kind of emotions are still regulated and deeply programmed inside of your brain. And so if you don't put yourself in a situation to where you can have a relationship with them, they'll often just spew out all over yourself, and it'll make it a lot harder for you to build on something, because you're a day-to-day person, and years go by. I had this guy tell me, the days are long and the weeks fly by. So the next thing that we can focus on is, all right, we got our checklist. What's something else we can do that is, maybe not motivational, but it's something that we can work and we can grow on? Okay. Yeah. Right. Accountability. Accountability partners, right? People who can see you at every stage are going to be really, really helpful for you in your progress. The problem that we have is a lot of times we don't like to be seen failing. We don't like to be seen not trying or not doing things at a level that everybody else is doing. Like, well, if I don't have 1,000 followers, or if I don't have 1 million followers, or I don't have, a bunch of global or public recognition, then maybe what I'm not doing or what I am doing, right, isn't good enough for serving the people around me. That's a misconception that stops you from starting at check one. And if you're not starting at check one, then of course you're going to be stuck before the start line. And if you're before the start line, what do you want to hear? The motivation, right? But motivation doesn't get you through the 5K. It doesn't get you through the 10K. It doesn't get you through the marathon. The thing that does is the repetitive action of taking a deep breath and putting one leg in front of the other. And the last one is, all right, we got our accountability, we got our checklist. What's the last thing we could maybe have an alternative instead of motivation? Right, back to our wood and water. You can have repetition. Right? The idea that you can do something 1,000 times, right, is a lot more serving than doing something once. The old adage is, I fear more the person who practiced the one punch than the 1,000 moves, because he practiced that one punch 1,000 times. Those kind of things can lead you down a path of, regulation. If I'm doing the same thing over and over again, that repetition is soothing. It reinforces my identity. It reinforces my purpose and my process. And now when I get to the 500th rep and I'm growing, trying to change, then I have a little bit more creativity in my curiosity. I have a little bit more knowledge in what works and what doesn't work for me. So the next time you think about getting motivated, instead of, watching 30 minutes of somebody yelling at you or somebody telling you exactly how great you are or how it's going to work, maybe, just maybe, list off what are the things that you want to do and let that idea of yourself or that idea, that vision, kind of grow into some type of intrinsic motivation rather than external factors of somebody making you feel good about the moment. That's a lesson for the day. I'll see you guys in the next one.
I call it karma. Eat your heart out like Jeffrey Dahmer. Oh my gosh. Alright, I gotta see if I can export.